was a really cool way to finish the day. I love that technology roundup, and like all the other speakers, all had something really unique, really interesting to say. I've been asked to do a really high level, really fast recap of the day in 5 minutes or less. Okay, so buckle in. Here we go. And I've started my timer. We started out this morning with a land acknowledgement, which doesn't happen very much in the U.S., and I wish it would happen more because it reminds us all of folks that inhabited the land that we're at now, currently, long before we were here. And I think it's just a great way to have a reverence to start the day in a session like this. The Deputy Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Kasia Paquette, joined us, and she stayed with us all morning, which was a great indication of both the interest and curiosity that the high levels of government have in Alberta with regard to CCUS, as well as the commitment that the government is making, both in their effort and in their funding in various ways for CCUS. So it was great to hear her talk about all the various commitments, all the various incentives that are occurring. And at the end of her session, she said, CCUS is a priority for the Albertan government, and I certainly believed that. My colleague Spencer Scheck followed that up with a very broad picture, and just probably sufficient to say that progress is happening on CCUS, not just in the U.S. and in Canada, but around the world, and that can't help but contribute to and benefit CCUS projects right here in Alberta. Then we moved into CCUS operating models, and John started with a summary description of the pore space tenure project, tenure process, and discussion of the 25 hubs that are currently in development in Alberta to store CO2. Adelaide from Whitecap and Lisa, I mentioned this earlier, they both said they're going to have first injection within 2 years, which I thought was just really cool. I got a sense during that session that there was some concern about enhanced oil recovery not being included in the ITC. I don't know if anybody else picked that up, but that was one of the things that I heard. And there was just some really cool turns of phrases. Candace talked about the 4 things that Alberta has going for it: 1, capacity; 2, beautiful injectivity; 3, great seals; and 4, a high level of safety. Adelaide reminded us to put emitters at the center of the value chain when we look at CCUS projects. And Candace reminded us that public confidence is the #1 priority for developers of CCUS projects. And we talked about carbon pricing. We talked about where the money was coming from, funding and incentives. And Rob, it was interesting because, again, I mentioned this earlier, there's incentives coming from Alberta and from the feds, and there's both financial support and non-financial support coming from both of them as well. And it was great to have some of the folks from Ottawa join us remotely. So really appreciated their time and effort as well. Then we moved into regulations and risk after lunch. And Rick started by telling us that MMV will be a very creative process. And that made me pay attention, because when I hear about creative processes, sometimes there's that kind of creative accounting, let's find a way to avoid taxes. But what he was talking about was really about innovation, and how innovation is going to play such an important role. And there's enough flexibility within regulations to allow for that innovation when we're talking about monitoring, measurement, and verification projects. And there's a lot of guidance out there, and he told us to focus on some of those keywords that are in the regulations and guidance. Faisal talked about the D65 directive and other relevant directives, and provided an overview of the various storage regulations. Sean the lawyer told us that he was jealous because everybody else could talk about the great things that are happening, and he had to remind us of some of the challenges and problems. And he started by saying that evaluation is key to prevention, right? And of course, ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. There is a pathway to liability transfer to the Crown. There are various types of risk, all of which are manageable. There's tort risk, there's health and safety impacts, regulatory liability, which includes CO2 credit clawbacks, and a really big risk that I think has spillover effect beyond the individual company that is facing it directly, and that's reputational risk, and a reputational risk that goes beyond the country to the CCUS industry. So it's imperative that every one of us that's involved in CCUS do the math and operate with the utmost level of care. If all else fails, there's the due diligence defense, and there's insurance that's available to cover some of those risks as well. Finally, the last session here was on technology. And like I said, I thought that was pretty cool. It was really interesting that two of the companies that were represented up here were founded here at the University of Calgary. Direct air captures, everyone had these great and really ambitious growth plans. And it was really wonderful to see. And I think that a big challenge is going to be how do we actually deliver on the demand that's out there for some of these technologies. It struck me when Sana was talking about Alberta Innovates. She was very focused on the Hydrogen Center of Excellence and hydrogen in general. And if you'll remember from the Deputy Minister this morning, she started the day today talking about the importance of hydrogen in the future economy of Alberta. And that same theme occurred throughout the day. So I found that was one of those themes that just kind of kept coming up was the important role that hydrogen will play in the future. Okay, so that was under 6 minutes. My apologies for going over. But that's kind of how I saw the day. I'm sure all of you have various takeaways that are different from mine, and make your own list and share it with your colleagues as well. I want to say a couple things just to finish up before I hand off to John. First, love the fact that there's still a full room here of over 200 people at the end of the day. And we haven't forgot those of you who are joining us online. There were more than 700 people that joined us online through the day today. So I think that's very cool and very appreciative of all of you for doing that. I'm just going to share a couple of questions that I said I didn't know the answer to when I was on various panels at conferences. The first was, I'm pretty skeptical, to be frank with you, that we're going to stay below 1.5 degrees of global warming. I'm kind of skeptical that we're going to stay below 2 degrees, and I recognize the implications of that. And somebody once asked me, well, if we're going to stay not going to stay below 2 degrees, why are we doing all this? And my reaction was, because every molecule every molecule matters, right? 2 degrees is better than 2.5 degrees. 2.5 is better than 3. And if we don't take really significant action now, we're going to be at a 3 degree plus warmer world and all the implications of that. So the work that you do matters, whether or not we stay below 2 degrees in the future. The second I don't know that came to me was I was on another panel last fall, and the moderator said, will CCUS succeed? And my other panelists said, yes, it has to. It's absolutely essential. And my answer was, I don't know. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of political inertia that prevents us from moving as quickly as we need to. And so I guess my last request for all of you is to keep at it, because this is uncertain whether CCUS will succeed in achieving the ambitions that the international agencies and governments have put out for climate change and for CCUS. So keep at it. I really appreciate the work that you do. And I'm really glad that you're all here today as a part of that. The last thing I'll say before I hand it off to John, you're probably wondering what this is. This is a survey, and it's 5 questions. And you can scan this now. Thank you, Joey, for leading by example. Scan this now, answer 5 survey questions. That way you don't have to be worried about it when you get an email later in the week to take it from your desk. So we'd love to get your responses to this survey. Like I said, 5 minutes. Don't start answering those questions until John's done. Thanks very much for your attention today. John, over to you.
Sorry, Jeff, that's the survey. So if people want to take a quick shot of that, and then I'll back up a couple slides and give my kind of closing remarks. So in terms of, I guess, my reflections on the day, I think some real good points in terms of the scale and the need to scale up the CCUS activity. I kind of think we talked about different technology readiness levels and specific elements of technology. But I kind of think about the readiness level of the broader ecosystem for CCS. And I think we're kind of in that sense a little bit at a cusp. And I think we'd have a very different kind of conversation if we got back together in 5 years with this same group. I think we'd be in a very different place than we are today. So I'm looking forward to that unfolding. So just to, I'll roll back. Okay, so moving forward, just a few reminders of things that people might be interested in. We've got the Canadian Hydrogen Convention coming up in April in Edmonton. We also have a Carbon Capture Canada conference coming in September, also in Edmonton. October 2024, Emissions Reduction in Alberta is partnering with IEA GHG, and they'll be co-hosting the Greenhouse Gas Control Technology Conference. So this is a big international conference with a focus on CCUS. That'll be here in Calgary, so make sure to look for that one. A lot of ongoing work is going to happen with the Department of Energy, the Alberta Energy Regulator, including engagement on that small and remote scale. A tenure piece that was mentioned before. Rob Hamlick talked a little bit about the new credit types in tier, which allows some harmonization with the clean fuels regulation. So that'll be rolling out through the course of this year, essentially, in terms of those new flexibilities being taken advantage of by stakeholders in Alberta. Our deputy minister spoke a little bit to the mandate letters that we have. So a couple of key items from there. Again, the development of a maiden Alberta climate strategy. So that's ongoing work. Investment in clean tech and innovation. That's also ongoing from our mandate letter. And then from Department of Energy's mandate letter, working with industry to develop a pathway for implementation of carbon technology to support the goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. Okay, and really, I guess also importantly, want to encourage you to expand on what you may have heard of or learned today. You know, find out more, follow up on something that has made you curious through the course of the day. Also, keep the dialogue going with each other. We had a very good networking session yesterday. It's really going to take a lot of complementary skills and a lot of coordination of people in different roles to make CCUS the success in Alberta that it can be. I also like to give a big thanks to the Global CCS Institute team for partnering with us on this event and helping us pull it all together. And also for the folks in our environment and protected areas team working on organizing and making the day go smoothly, as well as the staff here at the MacEwan Conference Center. Feel free to either hang on to your name tags or leave them at the tables on the way out, and wish you all safe travels. Thank you.